people in the Fever were like, y'all.
That's not my point. There's a lot of other going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. Yeah. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Remember when Sheryl Swoopes grabbed the mic and boldly declared that no one wanted to sign with the Indiana Fever? That free agents would steer clear like the franchise was radioactive, doomed by locker room turmoil and a so-called toxic culture. Yeah, well, that take now belongs in the Hall of Fame for the coldest takes in WNBA history.
What kind of things do you feel?
I'm not in the locker room.
Okay. But
I'm talking about more social media.
Okay. It's a turn. It's a turn, right? It's really a turn of the tides.
Okay, here's my point. The beginning of the year, right? Everybody.
Because now, Indiana just won free agency. And it's not just some random Twitter fan saying it. It's Sue Bird. But before we get into Sue's basketball gospel, let's roast Swoopes' original take. This wasn't just an offhand comment. A Hall of Famer went on record saying Indiana was where careers went to die, that the locker room was a mess, and that real talent would never choose the Fever.
So that takes us to Indiana, which I think everyone agrees right now has gone from, a team that made the playoffs last year, lost in the first round. They were building all these young pieces, of course, Caitlin Clark, to now an immediate contender with all the moves that they've.
But as free agency unfolds, the reality is clear. Players are lining up to join the Caitlin Clark show, and that's exactly what Sue Bird, a walking encyclopedia of basketball history, sees. When Sue talks, people listen.
I think Natasha Howard certainly stands out. I loved playing with Tosh.
But you cannot say enough.
I cannot say enough about Tosh. I really enjoyed playing with her. I think she really is she's just this glue player that doesn't get enough shine for what she does, because a lot of what she does doesn't show up in the box score, but she just is like always in the right place at the right time. And a player like that, I think, complements what Indiana is built.
See, Sue doesn't hand out compliments like candy on Halloween. She's not here for clout. She's a 4-time WNBA champion, 5-time Olympic gold medalist, and the point guard who led one of the most dominant runs in WNBA history, the Seattle Storm.
So Sue Bird is one of the greatest point guards of all time in the WNBA. And she's someone who obviously is a part owner in the Seattle Storm. So hyping up another team is a bit of a conflict of interest, if we're being honest.
So, what did she say? First, she brought her classic veteran perspective, telling everyone to pump the brakes on the Indiana Fever's instant title parade. That's classic Sue. Steady, calculated, and reminding everyone that rings aren't won on Twitter or in group chats hyping Clark's logo threes.
Obviously, through trade, added Sophie Cunningham, a player that, I would say a 3-and-D type player who has, been to the finals, so has that playoff experience. She's also just tough. She's mentally tough. She's physically tough. She brings an edge to them. And then last but not least, they added Dewana Bonner, which really I think is the one that for most people took it to another level. So now you're like, oh, they're a contender.
Here's what the casuals missed. Sue Bird wasn't downplaying the Fever. She was putting the league on notice, because when you sift through her words, the real message is clear. Indiana is building something special, and it's happening fast. This isn't just the Caitlin Clark show, though she's the box office star, draining logo threes, dishing out assists like a pregame warm-up, and making defenders look like traffic cones. No, Sue sees the foundation.
The biggest part of DB joining this team is that she's already played for Steph. So I think that's going to help bridge the gap, because as we go along, we're going to talk about Vegas and Seattle, Atlanta. It's really going to be which
Stephanie
team.
White being the head coach of,
right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Was the head coach of Connecticut, now the head coach of Indiana.
Yeah. So it's really going to be the team that finds their chemistry. This season is short. I mean, they're adding games, but it's still pretty short season.
Still short.
And it's going to be the team that finds chemistry. So having Stephanie White there, having already coached DB, really does help.
Aliyah Boston, the dominant center set to own the paint for the next decade. Kelsey Mitchell, an elite scorer who battled through the tough years and is now thriving. Lexi Hull, the glue player, the hustle engine every great team needs. And now, free agents want in. That's the part Swoopes never saw coming. Caitlin Clark changed everything.
Kelsey Mitchell's balling, Caitlin continuing to impress, and she's going to break records nonstop for the next couple years.
This isn't the Indiana Fever of old. It's the hottest ticket in town. Record-breaking sales, jerseys flying off shelves, and networks scrambling for TV slots. Free agents see it. Veterans chasing rings want in. Playing with Caitlin Clark means primetime games, deep playoff runs, and legacy building. Sue Bird knows the signs. She built a dynasty in Seattle and sees Indiana doing the same. This is how it starts. A superstar, a young core, and veterans who buy in. While Sue breaks it down, Sheryl Swoopes' take is falling apart. The Fever aren't an afterthought anymore. They're the future.
There's something about the way she plays the game, her passing, her shooting, that people really identify with. I really feel like we're poised and we're set up for a great, successful next era of Fever basketball.
When Sue Bird tells you a team is about to be a problem, you listen. She's not some retired legend chasing relevance with hot takes. When she speaks, it's a warning, and her message about the Indiana Fever is loud and clear. This team isn't coming. They've arrived.
WNBA MVPs in your career, would you consider each of those 3 seasons as dominant seasons for yourself?
No.
I can't. Bro, Sheryl Swoopes is willing to lie about her own career before she even admits that Caitlin is done.
Sheryl Swoopes missed the point. Indiana didn't stumble into success just because Caitlin Clark arrived. She was the spark, but the foundation was already there. For years, the Fever built piece by piece, grinding through losses while Aliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and the core kept working. Clark wasn't the plan. She was the final piece. And Sue Bird sees it. The blueprint. Indiana didn't chase headlines. They built a system where Clark can thrive without carrying the load every night. This isn't a team hoping for a savior. It's a machine built to win.
About the experience, the champions that have been added to this point.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what everybody talked about when we were in the playoffs last year of, we really didn't have much experience at all playing in playoff games. I don't know what the exact number was, but we really lacked in that area. So just adding pieces of, players that have been in this league, they know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to get to the finals. They know what it takes to win championships. I think it's exactly what we needed in our locker room. So it's just exciting, but also they're not only really good basketball players, they're really great leaders and really great people. And I know the front office obviously really prioritized that and looking for the pieces that we wanted to add. So really thankful for that.
It means Sydney Colson is joining the Indiana Fever. What does that mean? Indiana is just being so greedy right now. They took DB, they took Natasha. Now they got Sydney Colson. Why would they take Sydney from her?
I think Caitlin Clark is at that ascension point where she's going to be top of the MVP race. We're going to talk about her in terms of stat leaders later, but the way that the Indiana Fever just made a statement around Caitlin Clark and said hey, we're pushing in the chips. We're ready to win now. And Duana Bonner's obviously, the face of the new pieces that have come in. So obviously that's going to be the biggest needle mover in what Drew said. The market has obviously
the future is so bright, and our ultimate goal is to hang another banner in the field house. And our ultimate goal is to come back in here after we win that championship and celebrate again like we did in 2020.